You know that feeling when everything is finally working? Not almost working, not getting there. Actually working. The project is ahead of schedule. The relationship is the healthiest it's ever been. The opportunity you've quietly rehearsed for in your head for years is sitting right in front of you, and for the first time, it looks like it's actually going to happen. And then, almost like clockwork, something shifts. Maybe you pick a fight with someone you love for no reason you can fully explain. Maybe you get sick suddenly, out of nowhere, the week before the biggest presentation of your career. Maybe you miss a deadline you've never missed before. Maybe you just slow down, get distracted, start questioning everything right when you should be accelerating. And the strangest part? You don't recognize it while it's happening. You think you're tired. You think the timing is just bad. You think the universe is sending you a signal that maybe this wasn't meant for you after all. But the universe isn't sending you anything. You are. There's a certain kind of person who carries this quietly. They're not lazy. Often they're among the most driven people in any room. They're not afraid of hard work. They've done the hard work for years, sometimes decades. They've wanted this, genuinely wanted it. And yet somehow they keep arriving at the edge of what they've been building toward. And then something goes wrong, or they make something go wrong, and they can't explain why. What the world usually says about these people isn't kind. It says they're self-destructive, commitment-phobic, unconsciously comfortable with failure. It implies some kind of character weakness, some lack of willingness, some fundamental brokenness at the center of who they are. That explanation is wrong, and it misses almost everything that actually matters. What's actually happening has a name in psychology, though the name matters less than the mechanism. Some researchers call it the upper limit problem. What it describes is something far more precise and far more human than any character flaw. It is the moment when your nervous system decides that your success has become dangerous. Not metaphorically dangerous, biologically dangerous, threat response dangerous. This isn't a concept borrowed from self-help culture. It's rooted in how the brain actually processes change. Any change, including positive change. And once you understand what's happening at the level of the nervous system, the behavior stops looking like sabotage and starts looking like what it actually is: protection. Here's what the neuroscience tells us. The amygdala, the part of the brain most associated with threat detection, does not distinguish meaningfully between negative stress and positive stress. What it registers is disruption, departure from the known, the activation of unfamiliar territory. When your life begins to shift significantly, when the income jumps, when the recognition arrives, when the relationship deepens beyond what you've previously allowed yourself to have. Your nervous system doesn't greet this with celebration. It greets it the way it greets anything unfamiliar, with a quiet red alert. Research in neuroscience consistently shows that the brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. Its primary job is not happiness, it's not success. Its job is to match incoming experience with stored models of what the world looks like, what you look like inside it, and what is safe. When that match breaks down, when reality starts diverging from the internal model your brain has spent years building, the system doesn't update the model immediately. It tries to restore the old one. This is not a design flaw, it's the design. Think about where that internal model was built. For most people, it was built in childhood. In the family you grew up in, there was an emotional thermostat, a set point for how much happiness, success, visibility, or abundance was normal. Not ideal. Normal. And normal to the nervous system is what safe feels like. If the people around you struggled, struggle became familiar. If success in your family was always accompanied by stress, by conflict, by someone's resentment, by instability, then the nervous system learned to associate achievement with danger. Not consciously. There was no decision made. It was simply patterned in the way all early experiences are patterned in. Quietly, completely, before you had any language for it. So when you start to exceed that set point, when your life begins to feel more expansive, more visible, more successful than the template you were handed, the nervous system doesn't feel pride. It feels alarm. An alarm in the body has one instruction: return to baseline. The behaviors that follow are just the body trying to obey that instruction. The manufactured conflict, the sudden exhaustion, the uncharacteristic mistake, the procrastination that appears out of nowhere. These aren't weaknesses. They are the nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, pulling you back toward what it recognizes as safe, even when safe has become a ceiling. There's something worth naming here because it often goes unnamed. The moment that tends to trigger this most intensely isn't failure. It's not the middle of the struggle when things are hard and the outcome is uncertain. The moment that triggers it most is the moment just before you prove, beyond any remaining doubt, that you are actually capable. Imposter syndrome is often described as the fear of being found out, the anxiety that you're not as capable as people believe. But what rarely gets examined is when imposter syndrome tends to spike hardest. And the answer consistently is not when you are failing. It's when you're about to succeed. It's when the evidence is accumulating in your favor, and the gap between who you've believed yourself to be and what the world is about to confirm about you becomes impossible to ignore. At that moment, the psyche doesn't respond with relief. It responds with terror. Because success at that level requires a new identity. And the old identity, even when it's painful, even when it includes struggle and self-doubt and limitation, is known. Familiar. Safe in the way that only long-held things can feel safe. To become the person who has succeeded, you have to stop being the person who hasn't yet. And that loss, the loss of the familiar self, is something the nervous system resists with everything it has. This is worth sitting with, because there's a paradox embedded here that doesn't get talked about enough. The behaviors that look most like giving up are often happening at the moment of greatest proximity to the thing being chased, the chaos that erupts in relationships right before a major breakthrough, the illness that arrives the week before everything changes, the sudden crisis of confidence after the best work of someone's life. These aren't signs that the person doesn't want it. They're often signs that some part of them wants it so completely that the threat of losing it, the threat of finally having it and then watching it fall apart, has become unbearable. And the nervous system, trying to protect against that unbearable outcome, engineers the collapse early on its own terms, where it feels like there's still some control. There is a quiet cost to this pattern that accumulates over time. Not just in the opportunities that don't materialize, but in the relationship a person develops with their own ambition. After enough cycles, working towards something, arriving at the edge, watching something derail, the mind begins to draw its own conclusions. It begins to read the pattern as evidence of limitation rather than as a survival reflex misfiring. And that story, once lodged, becomes its own kind of ceiling. What changes this isn't willpower. It's not discipline or motivation or any force applied from the outside. What changes it is something quieter and more precise. The gradual expansion of what the nervous system is willing to tolerate. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as the window of tolerance, the range of experience within which the nervous system can stay present, regulated, and functional without triggering its threat response. For people who grew up in environments where success was unpredictable, invisible, or accompanied by loss, that window tends to be narrower than they realize. Not because of anything they chose, but because of what the system learned to expect. Expanding that window isn't about convincing yourself that you deserve success. It's not about affirmations or mindset shifts or any kind of top-down intervention. It's about slowly, incrementally giving the nervous system evidence that more is survivable. That joy doesn't automatically precede loss. That visibility doesn't automatically invite danger. That having more than you grew up having doesn't mean betraying the people you came from. This happens in small moments more than large ones. It happens in the practice of staying present when things are going well, rather than immediately scanning for what could go wrong. It happens in noticing the impulse to create distance or drama when life starts feeling too good. Not to judge the impulse, but to recognize it for what it is. A signal, not a truth. Because here's something that tends to shift everything once it lands. The moment the nervous system starts pushing back against your success isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're close. The chaos and resistance and manufactured problems that erupt right before a breakthrough are, in a strange way, diagnostic. They tell you where your actual ceiling is. They tell you what the nervous system has decided is the outer limit of what's safe. And that information, rather than being a source of shame, can become the most useful map you have. When the spiral starts, when you notice the conflict, the fatigue, the sudden urge to abandon what you've built, you don't have to follow it. You can recognize it instead. Name it quietly for what it is. The system doing what it was trained to do, misapplying an old survival strategy to a new situation. And then stay anyway. Not with force, not with gritted teeth, but with the steady, practiced recognition that the discomfort you're feeling in this moment is not danger. It is change. And change, however the nervous system chooses to translate it, is what you've been working toward. You are not broken. You never were. The pattern you've been living with is not a character flaw or a lack of willingness or evidence that success was never really meant for you. It is a nervous system doing the only thing it knows how to do with unfamiliar territory, sounding the alarm and trying to pull you home. But home for a lot of people was never the destination. It was just the starting point. And the fact that you keep arriving at the edge, the fact that you keep getting close enough that the system has to work to pull you back, says something about you that's worth understanding clearly. You're not someone who can't succeed. You're someone whose nervous system hasn't yet learned that success is safe. And those are completely different problems with completely different solutions. If this felt like something you recognized, not just intellectually, but somewhere more specific, there's more that connects to it. The same pattern that shows up before breakthroughs tends to show up in other places too, in how certain people experience intimacy, in how they relate to rest, and what happens inside them the moment they feel truly seen. There's a thread running through all of it, and if you're curious about where it goes, it leads somewhere worth following. Dear viewer, if you found value in this video, like it and share it with friends and family. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell icon so that you will be notified every time we upload a new video. Thank you for watching until the end. We will see you in our next video. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed.